Here we are, Recovery Monday, episode number 45. Copper wants to be in on it. Hang on, I'm going to close the door. That's better. This way we won't really hear him as much and he will calm down. Anyway, welcome back. We'll wait for folks to kind of shuffle in here. This is the last chapter that we're doing out of this book, out of 7% Slower. We're at the end of this book. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what lies beyond that and how is learning this stuff useful just in life in general. Should be a pretty short little chapter because it is. I just kind of was a way that I used to sort of sum up the book and talk about how you can apply it to the rest of your life. So we'll talk about that. We'll do some Q&A. We'll talk about what to do on Recovery Monday after this because I kind of have no idea what to do on Recovery Monday after this. So I'm going to put the chat overlay up so that you guys can see each other, what everybody is saying. Just let me know that everything is cool. Hey, Jim, what up? Welcome from Michigan. Hello, Copper. Yeah, Copper, he needs to be involved. What up, Katya from Russia? How's it going? Let me know how you guys are doing. Let me know where everybody's from. We'll wait for everybody to sort of file in. Seems to be a little bit of a delay when we start these. Some platforms are faster than others, but that's okay. DeLuca, what up, Vegas? We got Andrew DeLuca in the house. Haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you. Hey, Ken. Kathleen is here, back from her, I guess, back from her trip, like traveling around the world, or at least to the UK. That's around the world, kind of. Jason, what's up? Let's see. Hey, Ellen, how's it going? Hello, Netherlands. So we'll take another second or two, and then we'll get into this. Like I said, it's a short little chapter. There's nothing special here, nothing profound, I think. It's just really about what lies beyond this book. And of course, if you do not have this book and you want to go through it, can you see it? You can find it at 7%slower.com or on my website. Laura, what up? Julie, how's it going? Yes, I could see your name, Julie, because you're on YouTube. What up, Hans? Tracy's here. Milena is here. Vienna, welcome. The UK is here. Let's see here. Okay, let's get cooking. So what do we have? About 31 people. That's cool. These all stay, by the way, on my YouTube channel. So if you ever wanted to go back and watch all of the Recovery Mondays, all the 7% Slower videos and stuff, they're all on my YouTube channel in a playlist called Recovery Monday. What a surprise. So you can always go back and get those if you really want. Hey, Tamara, how's it going? Good to see you. Eye in the Sky. Love that name. Great name. GBG is here. What up? By the way, yeah, whatever. We'll do that later. So this chapter is chapter 12. It's the end of the book, and it talks about what lies beyond this. And again, I just sort of rehashed a little bit about like how I came up with the idea of going 7% slower and what it really means. Hello, Romania. Hello, Florida. Welcome, everybody. And what I say about 7% slower in this chapter is think of this as an action trigger. I'm going to read a little bit. 7% slower is not so much a method or a philosophy as it is a way to connect you to a larger method and larger philosophies. I have not built my life upon going 7% slower, but I have certainly incorporated into my life well beyond my anxiety recovery journey. So I talked in the chapter a little bit about how I use it when I feel like I hit a wall. I slow down a little bit. When I start to feel like I have bitten off more than I can chew, I slow down a little bit. When I'm confronted with major decisions in my life, which we all are from time to time, I've learned to slow down a little bit before I make them, as opposed to rushing into things and going into them in sort of a frantic state or I got to get this done kind of thing. When people around me are frantic and running around like crazy and demanding, that we rush around and put out a fire, I tend to slow down and it helps to bring some direction and clarity to the situation. And that's where I get people who say things to me like, this building could be on fire and you just stay like this. How is that even possible? Well, in a way, that's how. When I feel strong emotions like anger and sadness, the beauty of learning how to be a little bit more slow and live a little more mindfully and intentionally is I can feel all of those things, which I have to because I'm a human being, and without getting caught up so much in them. Like I feel like I experience my emotions much more productively since going through the recovery journey, and especially incorporating the idea that I can step back, slow down a little bit, and actually let whatever's going to play out. So it's really important. I talk about how we tie this back into the idea of surrender and acceptance and floating and being courageous, because really learning to slow down and being a little bit more intentional and mindful is one way to be able to do that. I know everybody always comes back to the idea of, I know what I'm supposed to do. I have to go forward. I have to face my fear, but how, Drew? How am I supposed to do this scary thing? And I contend that starting with the idea that, well, maybe I need to slow down a little bit kind of helps with that. Yeah, you'll feel things a little bit more when you do that, but it also puts a little space between you and that frantic state. And it sort of clarifies your thought and it can keep you connected to why you need to be courageous. Because in the moment when the shit is hitting the fan and we're super stressed out and you're panicking or you're really anxious or you're having intrusive thoughts and you're afraid of them, we somehow lose touch with why we have to do all the stuff that we talk about. Allow the thoughts, don't react to them, let them be, let the worst come true. We talk about all these things, and these are really hard things. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, we lose track of why we're doing that, which is really the most important part. What takes over is the need to feel better. Like we want to soothe ourselves. We want to get away from those scary things. And we forget why we're not supposed to try and get away from them. And I think that when you practice slowing down in your everyday life and you could bring that to the table when the chips are down and when the shit hits the fan, it sort of helps remain connected to the why. You get out of that frantic state, and that little bit of clarity of thought, that little bit of air gap between you and the frantic state can help you stay in touch with, like, oh, that's right. I know why I have to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to allow the worst to be true. I don't want to allow my insomnia fear. I don't want to allow this fear. I don't want to allow this thought. I don't want to allow the racing heart. But I remember now why I'm supposed to do this, which sometimes can help you bring up a little bit of that courage that you think that you don't have. So that's part of it too. And in a way, does this make you, is this uncomfortable? Yeah, it's definitely uncomfortable. Just to touch back on that again, I always like to validate that. When I tell people to try and slow down and live a little more mindfully and intentionally, yeah, we come in greater contact with those uncomfortable sensations and thoughts and feelings and all of those things. They kind of come and get us, and we let them catch us. So it is completely uncomfortable. That is really true. And in chapter 12 of 7% Slower, I think I even spent a bit of a paragraph sounding very life coachy, which, I hate to do, and talking about like, yeah, but there really truly is. And I know the internet is full of cliches and ridiculous platitudes about how growth happens in the uncomfortable places and get comfortable being uncomfortable, man. But I might joke about that stuff and pick on it, but there is a measure of truth in that, 100%. So yeah, this is an uncomfortable process. Learning to go slower instead of faster when you're afraid and anxious makes it even more uncomfortable sometimes, but there's value in there. There's gold forged in those fires. I talk about this all the time. Those lessons can stay with you beyond just the heat of the moment when you think you're trying to get through a panic attack or a scary thought or a challenging exposure or whatever the case may be. Those things stay with you. So I'm going to, essentially what I think I wrote here is a book that sort of helps give you a way to just pump the brakes. So when you're starting to feel like you're out of control and you're running around like a speed demon and you're just getting into that frantic state and feeding it and trying to escape and trying to feel better instantaneously and losing track of why we do all these scary things and losing track of what the end game is and where you're trying to get in the long term. All the stuff we talked about for the past 13 weeks or whatever in this book is about just learning to pump the brakes, slow things down a little bit. And again, allow a little bit of clarity of thought, let the front part of your brain, the big part of your brain, weigh in a little bit, give it a little bit of room to operate and help you make slightly better decisions in the moment. And more importantly, to learn the lessons that you're okay, even if you do slow down and allow things and not run away from them, you still wind up okay. These are lessons in navigation. These are lessons in strength. Hopefully, these give you experiences that stay with you because you begin to understand just how capable you really are, even when maybe much of your life has told you or people in your life have told you that you're not capable. Going 7% slower, learning to be a little more mindful, a little bit more intentional can help you get in touch with the fact that, wow, maybe those people were wrong. Maybe I actually can do this. And so much of this battle, whether you're dealing with stress, fear, anxiety, whatever whatever the variant is with panic disorder, OCD, health anxiety, whatever it happens to be, GAD, so much of it is based on recovery is based on a self-belief and the idea that like, oh, I can handle this. I think I can't, but I can. And slowing things down instead of running around like a crazy person can help you get in touch with the fact that like, oh yeah, I really can do this. Look at that. I can do this. So I will sort of wrap up this short lecture. We're going to go less than 10 minutes on the lecture side of this because like I said, it's not a long chapter. But here's what I wrote to sort of close the book. And I think these are good words, so I'll read them. I am confident that the simple act of learning to recognize your rushing habit, understanding what drives it, and working to change it can open the door to a wider and deeper progress when it comes to handling anxiety, stress, and fear. And that is pretty much how I ended this book. And those of you who have the book, who have read the book, if it has been helpful to you, that's great. That makes me feel great. All the kind words anybody has ever said about 7% Slower, I really appreciate. And there have been many. Kind of makes me cringe, but I do appreciate all the positive feedback on the book. I'm really happy that it's helped so many people and that it's sort of caught on to the large degree as it has. Surprisingly, evidently, last week was the 1 year anniversary of this book going live. I did not even know that. My editor had to tell me, like, hey, it was a year ago. So yeah, in a year, the book is still doing really well. It seems to be helping quite a lot of people, and I'm pretty proud of it. So that is the end of going through 7% slower. So let's go through some comments, questions. Anybody that wants to just add some personal anecdotes, anybody has any ideas of what we should do on Recovery Monday going forward? Because I'm not exactly sure what to turn this into at this point. We can kind of go through an anxiety story, which is my story. I can relate some of that personally. That's one idea. We can turn this into sort of just a weekly Q&A. We can put up a Q&A thread maybe on Instagram or whatever, collect questions and do it. Looking at different platforms that I might use to do this sort of thing. But if anybody has any ideas, just throw them out there and I'm willing to listen. So let's go through the comments here and let's see what everybody has to say. No. RIP Queen. Yes, today was the Queen's funeral, I understand. Fort Worth, Texas is here. Romania, Florida. Wales is here. Slip Joint Guy, another great name. You guys have, so one of the things that I love the most about this is cool screen names. I don't know why. I get a kick sometimes out of just seeing who follows me on Instagram because some of the most creative screen names, you guys are just really great. I love it. So Slip Joint Guy says, listen to your audiobook twice and it has helped me so much. Been putting it into practice. Excellent. You're welcome, Slip Joint Guy. I'm going to put this up on the screen because it brings up an important point. And that is, here's somebody who has listened to the big book, The Anxious Truth. It's over on my bookshelf. You guys know it. Just go to theanxioustruth.com. So if you're new or watching this for the first time, go to my website, theanxioustruth.com. All the books are there. Everything is there. You can find it all. So talking about listening to the book twice, which is really great, but then putting it into practice. So dude, this is my favorite part of that. Then putting it into practice. It's so important to remember that these things that we do, whether they're live streams or social media posts, Instagram posts, discussions to the Facebook group, audiobooks, whatever it happens to be, like those are great. And I hope, and I make them as tools for sure. But in the end, recovery comes in the doing. And this too, like I have now spent 13 weeks, we do these for almost an hour each. So I don't know, we've done about 10 hours on 7% slower. And I've talked about what to do and how to practice and what it means and what the benefits are. But in the end, just reading about it isn't enough with any of this stuff. You have to actually start to do it. So whether it's working toward recovery in terms of doing your exposure work, turning toward your fear, taking a new direction toward anxiety, fear, and stress, practicing slowing down, whatever it happens to be, practicing your skills, we have to do the things. Because if we don't do the things and we just listen and read or post in Facebook and hope that something changes as a result, we wind up really frustrated. So thank you, my friend, for pointing out that you enjoyed the book, which is great, and that you're doing things. I appreciate that in a big way. Joyce is here. Hey, Joyce, good to see you. I'll put this up on the screen. Kathleen is saying, I am having intrusive thoughts about not panicking about things anymore. I'm having to slow down and tell myself it's okay when I'm not having as much fear. This is a good comment. Thank you so much for sharing. Kathleen has just come back from a trip to Europe, I believe, another huge milestone. In fact, last week's podcast episode, if you have not listened to it, episode 223 or 224, I'm not sure, features Katie Hawks talking about her recovery journey. It's a really great episode. So Katie, thank you for bringing that up. A lot of times people do start to get anxious about not being anxious. We all get there. It's sort of a natural part of the recovery process. Andy Lyons is here. Hello, Andy Licious. So that's a natural part of the recovery process for many, many people. Remember that anxiety is a protective thing. It's supposed to be keeping you safe. Like the threat response is there just to keep you safe. Your brain is thinking it's doing you a favor. And so it has learned to be on guard, on guard, on guard all the time. And when there's nothing to be on guard about, that response tends to get really even amplified a little bit, like, oh, something must be wrong here. Like this is not right. There has to be a danger here somewhere. So that's really common and it's okay. You're just going to have to do exactly what you said, which is, oh, I'm anxious about not being anxious. It's essentially like, oh, I'm feeling a thing again. I'm thinking a thing again. So being anxious about not being anxious is really no different, than being anxious because you have to drive on the highway, that sort of stuff. So it's super common. It's not crazy. People think like, this is insane. I don't understand. Like, I don't feel anxious anymore. And instead of being happy about it, I'm anxious about it. That's okay. That's really normal. Most of us go through that. I went through that from time to time. Just to throw it out there, one of the most common states, and I experienced this, that people talk about where they don't feel anxious all the time and they're not constantly in like anxiety and I got to calm myself down mode, you're not constantly feeling like you're on fire, right? Mentally and anxiety wise, um, is a feeling of emptiness. It's weird because when anxiety sort of starts to go away, which it will over time, first we learn not to be afraid of it. And Katie really laid it out very well in the podcast episode we did last week together. First, we learn to not be afraid of it, and then it begins to lessen and go away. And when it does, there's a giant hole left behind. Like when it was a full-time job, like my full-time job was being an anxious person. So if I go back, 14 years ago, whatever it was, like that was my job. My job was being anxious from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, with little breaks in between when I somehow got distracted accidentally and wasn't in my own head. But once I didn't have that full-time job anymore, it would feel disturbing to feel so empty. It was like an empty feeling. Like there's nothing there. Like there's no emotion there. What is that? I don't understand. Shouldn't I be feeling something? So that flat feeling was a little bit alarming. It was empty, but that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. So Kate, I'll put this up on the screen. Let me throw that up here. I just saw it up here. But Katie just said, like, yes, I drove around all day feeling empty, right? There it is. Put it up on the screen. So drove around all day feeling with no feelings and I was spooked. It's okay. The default state for a human being is to not be aware of how you feel, believe it or not. So most people think like, well, if I'm anxious all the time, that would be a air quotes negative state. And when I'm not anxious all the time, it will be replaced by an air quotes positive state. So I will always feel something, and that something now will be happiness. It will be joy. It will be excitement. It will be pleasure. It will be anticipation. It will be, I don't know what it'll be. But that's not true. Like most of the time we go through our days and we are not actually in touch with how we feel. Now, that's another conversation with another group of people. I'm sure they would not like that I say that, but that is the default state for a human being. Like we are blissfully unaware of our emotional and mental state most of the time because we don't have to be. Imagine living your life continually re-examining how you feel all the time. Guess what? Don't have to imagine it because you've probably been living that way or are living that way right now. So we don't need to be continually scanning and focused on how we feel and evaluating that. So when you don't have to do that anymore, oh my God, it feels like a big empty hole, which feels foreign and disturbing and like rattling. But it's okay. You'll get used to that. You'll get used to that. Get used to being in a contented state again, where you're focused on what's going on around you rather than what's going on inside of you still. Hey, Mia's here. Barbara DeDrew. That's what Mia calls me by default. And it makes me laugh every single time a couple of years later. So let's go through a little bit more here. Slowing down has been the single best tool for me. Thanks, GBG. Appreciated that. Oh, this is good too. Hans, your comments are always on fire here. I appreciate you coming in on these. Doing nothing while fearful is the hardest part. It's like wanting to remember a name. Oh, I love this analogy. The more you try, the less you succeed. That's true. Also, and this is funny, I guess, if you're around my age, I don't know, maybe you guys that are younger than me too, I don't know. It's like quicksand, right? Which by the way, has anybody ever, I know it's an old joke, but has anybody ever actually encountered quicksand? Like I was led to believe it would be a much bigger problem than it actually turned out to be in my life because I've never seen quicksand. But quicksand is always shown as like the more you struggle, the more it sucks you in. And that is the same thing with this. The more you try really hard to be okay, the less okay you are. It's not cool. It's frustrating and it's really paradoxical. So thank you, Hans. I appreciate that comment. It's really good. Let's see what else we got. Oh, we really got to do this. We really, at some point, I have like the very beginning stages of reaching out to the people who own the rights to this movie. They may never answer me. I may never get anywhere, but if they will allow me, I will do a live stream once of What About Bob? We can all get together, watch it together and talk about it because it is one. If you have not seen What About Bob, I urge you to go see it. It is a great movie, very funny. Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. If you are dealing with an anxiety disorder, you absolutely cannot miss What About Bob. So one day, if I can, I will certainly do What About Bob on a live stream and we'll talk about it. Hey, Carol, what up? Let's see. Ellen asks, what you did with Josh on Monday. Yeah, we've been talking about that a little bit. Everybody's super busy. There's all kinds of projects. Everybody's got projects going on. I got school happening. There's books being written. There's a lot, right? So, I can speak for them. What the hell? They're my friends. So I know Josh and Kim and I have been talking for a long time about trying to get another thing together in some way, shape, or form. Don't know what that's going to look like or when we're going to do it. But I'm sure every once in a while we will pop up in each other's streams here and there. But we'll see. Maybe we'll come up with something to do together on a regular basis. We'll try. It's hard to get everybody together because of schedules. Nikki from the UK, slowing down is a game changer. This is good. Throw it up here. Sorry, I can't see your name because this Facebook group, restream, but nothing changes unless we make actual changes. That is 100% true. And by the way, it's okay if you're trying to make changes and not doing so great. Like, you're going to stink at all of this in the beginning. I know I say it all time and time again. I'll say it again now. You'll suck at all of this. In the beginning, I sucked at all of it. I was terrible at all of it. I tried to meditate. I tried to focus. I tried to not pay attention to, I tried to do all those things, and I was not good at it. It took practice again and again and again. And it's completely, like, totally okay for you to not be good at this. And please, for the love of all things holy, be patient with yourself. I understand that if you're watching me right now, you might be in a state where you just really want to feel better right now. And I get that. I really get it. But you have to be super careful about, like, I've been at this for 3 days and it's not any different. Like, that's not fair to you. Like, you've probably been living like this for weeks, months, possibly years. So this is not a thing that changes in the matter of 3 days or 6 days or 2 weeks. It just doesn't. You start to get little glimpses after a little while, but it's not like, these are not mitigation tools. They're not eradication tools. I'm not teaching you to, like, okay, if you just float and accept and surrender, then you'll feel better next week. I wish it was, but it doesn't work that way. So just be nice to yourself. Be patient. You're doing a new thing and a really hard thing, and it takes time to make that change. So let's see here. Eye in the sky again. Gotta acknowledge the screen name. When we slow down, we learn to handle the scary things that are routed through our lizard brain. Those scary things start to disappear. Well, I would say that's a little bit of more thinking than you have to have about this particular thing. It's not that things are getting rerouted through your prefrontal cortex. Yeah, we could talk about all of that stuff. That's true. But generally speaking, stuff is processed from the bottom up in your brain, right? So first, threat detection. If it passes threat detection, then yes, stuff gets to the higher level. If it doesn't pass, very oversimplified. Don't at me on this. But if it doesn't pass threat detection, people in a disordered state of anxiety, nothing passes threat detection because everything is a threat. That higher part of our brain, the logical part of our brain, never gets to weigh in, right? But yes, what starts to happen is those experiences get filtered through. They don't get stopped in the threat detection department. They pass on through, and the bigger part, the more advanced part of your brain, prefront PFC, if you will, gets to weigh in a little bit more. So yes, that's true, but that takes time. That takes time for that threat detection department to say, we're good. We can pass this through. It's all good. Let the guys upstairs take care of this. Takes a while. So let's see here. There's Andy Lyons popping in from Twitch, another Twitch viewer. Thank you so much. I'm always happy to have people from Twitch. I don't see Becky here. So Andy, you might be my lone representative on Twitch today. Thank you. I always get like 2 people from Twitch. This is true. This is true. Don't worry. You'll get anxious again soon enough. And what's so funny about that is I can attest to this. That's 100% true. When I was having those times when, like, why am I not anxious? I felt empty. It felt really, it felt icky. It was just, the word that comes to mind now that I think about it is it felt inhuman to feel nothing. Like, it was really disturbing. Like, this is not right. I feel empty. I feel inhuman because I have no emotions right now. But that wasn't what it is at all. And guess what? Yes, anxiety will come back when it needs to, but in a healthy way. And you'll be able to feel all the things. So that's okay. But good point. You'll feel anxious again soon enough. Don't rush it. Let's see here. This takes time. Very good. Emotional numbness. No, we can't have that. Okay, I'll throw this up on. Might as well. Do you ever feel symptoms of anxiety out of the blue when you're otherwise not stressed, bothered, or otherwise anxious? Do you know why these happen? Well, in the thing that we're talking about, remember that there's 2 different kinds of anxiety that we sort of care about. There's regular anxiety. Not that it's regular, but it is. Like the anxiety that all human beings experience from time to time. It's just baked into human existence. It's just the way it's going to be. And that anxiety is generally generated externally. There's a stressor going on. There's something that you are aware of. You had a fight with your partner, or you lost your job, or something. Your dog is sick. Like, okay, and you might experience stress, and it might feel like anxiety. And in that situation, you know why it happened. But internally generated anxiety, which is that's the stuff that I'm always writing and talking about. That's why I'm on these live streams, is generated. You are anxious about being anxious. Your anxious state itself becomes the problem. So a good indicator of that is when you ask that question. Oh, I'm anxious, but I don't know why. And this is a problem. I have to try to figure it out. Well, no, you don't. Because in the end, the lesson that we're all trying to learn here is I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to try to find the trigger. If I can't find the trigger, then there's a really good chance, especially if this is a recurring thing, that the anxiety itself is now the trigger. I do not know, nor will I maybe ever know, what caused my first panic attack. but I know what caused the second one, the first one, right? So I know that sounds oversimplified, but that is 100% true. I was a textbook example of how a panic attack becomes panic disorder. Do not know what caused the first one. Everything was going great in my life. Got a 4.0 that semester. I was home, spring break, and like everything was great. Like I had a girlfriend, everything was going great. Like I couldn't ask for more as I guess a 19-year-old dude at the time. And I had a panic attack. So I don't know what caused that first one, but the second one was 100% caused by the first one. So if you are questioning your state all the time, trying to figure out and get rid of it because you are afraid of feeling that way, or you have determined it is not acceptable to feel this way, you're talking then that's internally generated, and who cares what caused it? It caused itself. Does that make sense? So sometimes my body wants to do everything fast, but learning to slow down has helped. Even, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. Laura, thank you for this. Even with exercise, which is funny because you think at face value, you would say, well, exercise, we're trying to like get our heartbeat up and you want to sweat, and you want to move fast. But even exercise can be a frantic affair. And we're literally trying to not be in a frantic state. I get this because when I first went back to the gym in the middle of my recovery and I started lifting heavy again, oh, that was rough. Thank you for this, says Mia. So when that was rough because it put me right up, like all of those really scary sensations. I was exercising, but in a light kind of way. And I'm like, okay, I got to get back in the gym. And, anybody who's ever lifted heavy, that it's not like distance running. It's not endurance. It's anaerobic stress. So like it is 65 seconds of really heavy activity with a loaded barbell on your back or whatever it is. And then at the end, you are gasping for air and your heart is pounding. So it doesn't stay that way because you're resting between sets, but that was so uncomfortable. And I would find myself rushing through my workout, trying to get the hell out of there faster. So I get that. Exercise became a frantic affair. Title of your first anxiety novel. For those of you who are Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans, it would be A Frantic Affair, title of your sex tape. So anybody who watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine gets that joke. They make me laugh every time. All right, so this is good here because 6 planets are in retrograde and I need to slow the F down plus anxiety. You know what I have for you, Mia? I have this, and I know you're going to hate it. Is it going to focus? Come on, camera. I'm going to do it. I can't get my camera to focus, but you know what it is, the lizard coin. F that lizard, right? I sponsor either butthead for my wife. I don't know what's going on here, but all right, let's keep going. Hardest thing in my worry about, okay, let's see. One of the hardest things is my worry about death along those lines, being okay with not being okay with it, but not letting it send my anxiety through the roof. I'll throw this up on the screen. Where are we? 27 minutes. I kind of like these sort of casual Q&A things. Maybe that's what we're going to do. Let's see. Yeah, F that lizard coin, Mia says. One of the hardest things is my worry about death is along those lines, being okay with not being okay with it, but not letting it send my anxiety through the roof. That's that unanswerable question thing. I had that in a big way. And what I discovered, and I think I did an Instagram video on this, I know I've done a podcast episode on it, existential anxiety and the fear of death, is that when I got better at being anxious, as crazy as it sounds, and not trying to always solve my anxious states and solve my scary thoughts, somehow the death anxiety sort of went away. Look, I'm not looking forward to the day, but I was able to not get so caught up with it in a disordered kind of way. So now I actually talk about it and think about existence and, I don't know, play with those kind of crazy philosophical questions and existential questions that there are no answers for. But I couldn't even hear the word dead. And it wasn't special death anxiety. It was just that I was so glued to the thoughts that I would have in those days that there was no difference between I know you're going to say this is crazy, but there was no difference between the way I was thinking about death and the way I was thinking about, that the orange juice might be poisoned. It was the same exact thing, even though you're going to say like, but the orange juice wasn't poisoned, but we are all going to die. That's true. But I was so glued in a kind of unhealthy, twisted way to that thought. And as I just got better at being anxious and moving through those kind of scary thoughts, that went away. And it wasn't special death anxiety. It wasn't existential anxiety. It wasn't attachment anxiety. It wasn't any of those things. It was just, I was in a bad habit of following all of my sticky thoughts. Yeah, I get that, Jason. I totally get that. I can talk about death now. I couldn't even hear the word for about a year. I wouldn't let, you guys have heard me say this before. I think I wrote it in my first book. Wouldn't let my kids, they were little at the time. They were 4 and 6 when I started really getting my shit together and going through the recovery thing. I wouldn't let them say the word. Like I will never forget one of my daughters trying to describe something, and she started to say it, and then she caught herself because she knew that I couldn't hear it, and she called it not alive. Not my proudest moment. One of my worst Tuesday night. You know what I'm talking about. Um, I see that Kathleen and Mia are bonding over the retrograde thing. F this retrograde crap. Heather says, I am about to wean off my anxiety meds that have been on for years. Okay, please pray. I'm so scared. It's okay to be scared, Heather. Totally normal. Um, I will tell you this. I know I don't talk about this stuff. Anybody that wants to hear the things about meds and withdrawal and stuff, I did 3 podcast episodes. If you go to theanxioustruth.com and search for SSRI, you will find one of them and you'll see there's 3 episodes in a row where I talked about my experience with antidepressants, medication, what was good about them, what was bad about them, and what my withdrawal experience was. That's all I'm going to say about that. We're not going to talk about it. But I can tell you this, that it's important to understand, throwaway. It's important to really understand, Heather, that it's not guaranteed that you will have horrible withdrawal. It's not in any way guaranteed. And as much as I hated the pharmaceutical companies for a little while for putting me through what I went through, I had to understand that it is not guaranteed that every human being goes through some sort of horrible withdrawal. Not true. So keep that in mind, but also know that you can get through that. Okay. This is good. This is a good comment from Ellen here. I want to implement everything all at once. That's true. So sometimes we get into the speed habit on the micro level. Like I'm panicking now. And so I'm doing everything really fast right in this minute, second to second. Sometimes we get into speed demon mode because we just want to feel better now, right now. And so you read books like the books I write, or you listen to podcasts like mine. I'm not the only one. There are other people that sound like me too. You watch videos, whatever. You're talking about it. This in a Facebook group. You're watching live streams, and that sounds right. Oh my God, there's a light bulb moment. Oh my God, he's so right about that. And you want to try and recover now. Like I want to do everything right now. So I get that, but you can't. You can't take the lessons, file them away, use them organically as they come up as you go down the line. All right. So I totally get that though, Ellen. That's a thing that you want to. I want to put everything in play right now. Everything I learned, I want to recover right now. You can't. Let's see here. Okay, throw this up here. Kathleen, another good comment. And again, listen to the podcast episode I did with Kathleen. She talked about all of this stuff. I felt so bad in the beginning that I thought that I was going to be the one. How many people here by show of hands, how many people by show of hands or whatever in the comments have thought that you must be the one for whom this cannot work because you're in a special situation? I bet there's 53 people here, according to Restream. I bet at least 20 of you have thought that more than one time. The videos about the meds, they're podcast episodes. There you go. Just go to The Anxious Truth and search for SSRI. TheAnxiousTruth.com. There's a search tool. Search for SSRI. You'll find one of them, and you'll see that the podcast episodes on either side, or the ones right before that, are about that. So it's 3 podcast episodes. You're free to listen to them as often as you want. They're also on my YouTube channel. So all the podcast episodes are on my YouTube channel. Thank you, B. Appreciate it. The link. See, look at all the people who are chiming in with like, I thought that I was the one for sure. I was the one, like I wasn't going to get better. I was special. I was worse than everybody else. Or people, and I don't take this personally ever. Like the first time you hear somebody like me, or you hear somebody maybe like Josh Fletcher or Jenna Overbaugh or Kim Quinlan, and you hear us talking about these things and think, you are clearly insane, dude from New York with the beard. You have no idea what this feels like, but it's so scary for me. I've had people comment on my YouTube video saying, oh, Drew never had panic disorder. He doesn't really know. He's a scammer. He's a liar. I've heard all of that stuff. So I get that. It's super common to say, this doesn't apply to me because mine is worse. So I get that. It's okay. It's okay to think that. I see a comment in Spanish. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. If anybody wants to translate that, that would be great. I don't know what you're asking. Thank you for asking, but I'm sorry I can't read it because my Spanish is pretty much non-existent. So I'm sorry about that. What else we have here? A couple more minutes and then we'll end it. How did you deal with feeling? Okay, I'll throw this off the screen too. How did you deal with feelings that your life feels restrictive when anxiety, whatever, holds you back from doing so much? You're not going to like this answer, but the way I dealt with it was by doing the things that I felt sure that I couldn't do because I was agoraphobic. So the only way to deal with the restrictions of agoraphobia is to actively work on not being agoraphobic anymore. Like, I know that sounds like a shitty answer, but it's true. Like the only way to deal with that is to stop being agoraphobic. And the same applies to like the restrictions on the rest of your life because, oh, well, I can't do that because I panic. Well, then you're going to have to work on the recovery that we're always talking about here. Go do the things that make you panic so that you can learn that it's okay to panic and you're okay. You can get through it. And then things start to change. So the only way to deal with it effectively is to try your best to not be agoraphobic. You got to actually actively work on recovery. So that's how you deal with it. Yeah, at first I felt like a failure. Like this sucks. I'm restricted. My life is tiny and getting tinier. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. I'm damaging my business. Like I'm not participating with my family. That sucked. But the only way that I had to deal with it was to get better. So that's my advice there. Did it take a while to finally accept that your anxiety wasn't unique? 2 months in, I'm still feeling like mine is worse. I am not a good, I'm probably not a good judge of that. Because to be completely honest with you, I don't know if you're asking me or anybody else in the comments and you guys, oh, good. I see people are answering. This is great. I love when you guys talk to each other and help each other out. It makes me smile. I'm not a good judge of that because I never thought that. But I have been I've been immersed in cognition and learning theory and behaviorism and stuff like that since my college years, which was a couple of years. It's been a minute, right? So I've always been into this stuff. I've always been attracted to it. I've always been the guy reading the research papers and staying in touch with it. So I already knew that I wasn't. I knew I wasn't special. I wanted to be special, but I knew that I wasn't. So I'm not a good judge of that. But it is very common to think that you are special and can't get better. Let's see here. Okay, so Marge has a wedding in October, which is could be in a couple of weeks, could be in 6 weeks, don't know. And I'm already convinced I won't enjoy it. Like, see that the way that anxiety will tell you, don't go, shouldn't go. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. And the knee jerk reaction to that is to try to find a way to guarantee that it won't be awful. But really and truly, the lesson of recovery is that, well, maybe it won't be great, but I can handle it not being great. I know that sucks, but that's really what you're after there. Because I know when you say that, a lot of people will say, oh, you're going to have a great time. It's going to be a happy day. Eh, maybe that would be great if you do, but we're always learning that all states are permitted, whether it's you have a great time and it's an awesome time at the wedding, or the wedding kind of sucks and it's not fun, or you're anxious at the wedding. All are permitted because you can handle all of that. It's really important, really important. Let's see here. Thanks so much for the explanation. You're very welcome, my friend. It took me a long time as everything, but what about my thoughts? Oh, okay, Ellen, thank you for chiming in on this. Thank you for chiming in. It took me a long time. I was like, but what about my thoughts? This is also super common. And I think a couple more comments and then we'll end it. People feel like, oh, well, I'm not afraid of my racing heart. I'm not afraid of my breath. I don't feel that I'm dizzy anymore or anything like that. But my thoughts, it's always the word but in the beginning because anxious thoughts or scary thoughts or thoughts about thoughts. Because some people get caught in a loop of thinking about thinking. That's special. Like that's different. It's my thoughts now. Yeah, I know, but it's the same. Like a thought and a symptom are really the same thing. We treat them exactly the same way. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. Like, just like it doesn't matter if your heart is going 110 beats per minute or 80 beats per minute. It doesn't matter in the end. Well, we don't care what you're thinking. The content of the thoughts never matters. But it's really, really common to think that scary thoughts are special and unique, but they're not. And Ellen, yes, I'll put this right up on the screen. So Hans is talking to Ellen. Ellen is persistent, man. Ellen, I give you all kinds of props and respect and credit because this is a person, Ellen is not shying away from this. And everybody slips up and everybody stumbles from time to time, but I know, Ellen, you're still at it. And I appreciate that about you. I really do. So let's see here. Could we have a live stream of med withdrawal? I'm not likely to do that. And I'll tell you why, because I know other people come back and watch these videos afterwards. I'll tell you why I don't talk about meds that much. So those of you who are here and want to hear why, this is why. Because when we talk about meds, it invariably becomes people either want me to give them specific instructions on like, what med were you on? Did you ever switch meds? Which dose were you on? What did you eat or not eat with that? Like, how long did it take you to taper? What was your tapering schedule? And it doesn't matter what my tapering schedule was. It doesn't matter. Like nobody knows this. Here's reality. Nobody knows this. We have general idea, go slow, but anybody that tells you here is the special specific way that you must taper your med, why? Because the internet said so, because a lot of people thought that it helped them. There are general principles, but there's no specific instructions that will apply to anybody because we just don't know. We know more than we did when I went through it, but we still don't know a whole lot. And then the other problem with discussing meds is when we talk about getting off meds, people who are on meds will get angry at me and say that I am shaming them for talking about not using meds. And people, if we talk about using meds, then people who feel really proud that they're not, and you can feel whatever you want, that's fine, it's on you, have a need to come in and talk about how, well, I did it without meds. You could do it without meds. So there's no common ground there. And then feelings get hurt and it turns into an argument and, oh, you're med shaming and I'm not having it. So unfortunately, we can't have that discussion. Yes, thank you. Bethany says, anyone else's story is not your story. So this is why I don't talk about it. And I know people get angry sometimes. How is this anxiety help if I can't talk about meds? Because meds discussion is almost never fruitful. It's almost never fruitful. The work that we do here can exist while you're taking meds, while you're coming off of meds, and it doesn't necessarily change things other than the recognition that there's another challenge there in it for you. And that physically you might have anxiety that you can't make go away at the moment because of that. The episode of my podcast 2 weeks ago with Jennifer Swantowski is really good about this, right? Really good. She talks about how she applied all of these principles as she's going through her benzo withdrawal. So if you want to listen to that podcast episode, just go to theanxioustruth.com and search for Jennifer and you'll find her podcast episode. She'll talk about that. But yeah, everything is a debate. Can't do it. So there's no reason for that. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. I think we're good. Almost at the end. How do I find your videos? I mentioned that they're on my YouTube channel. You can search on my website, all of that stuff. Scrolling. I think I'm getting to the end here. 41 minutes is about it. Even after I feel that way, but you can just acknowledge it differently. Okay, cool. I like it. Get a dog. I dig when you guys talk to each other. I really do. It's going to be great. Let's see here. Sorry, you're watching me scroll. That's not fun. How to deal with having a loved one. Okay, well, I'll throw this up one real quick. A couple of comments at the end here, and then we're out. How to deal with having a loved one suffering from a chronic disease. Well, that's not good. That's not a good situation. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry for whoever it is in your family or your friend who is dealing with that. That's not a good thing. It's not fun at all. But we would talk about it's normal to be stressed by that. It's normal to be concerned about that. It's normal to feel emotions about that. If it's somebody that you love who's struggling, everybody would feel that. You're allowed to be human. Like, we're not trying to erase our humanity here. Just understand the difference between I'm really sad or I'm really upset or I'm really worried about my mom or my best friend or my partner, whoever it is. And the difference between that and I'm afraid that I'm really worried, where like the worry itself, the emotion itself, the concern itself, the fear about that person's future. It's okay. It's normal. The fear, the worry, the concern becomes its own problem. That's what we care about here. So it's okay to express stress and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to all of those things, but it just becomes you have to be careful that the state that you're in doesn't become the problem itself, separate from what that person is going through. It's the best advice I have there. So there's no special way to deal with it. Just recognize when you're making your feelings their own problem. They don't have to be. I think we are near the end. I'm sorry, guys. I can't get to all of the comments. I try, but I can't do it. I think we're at the end. All right. So we talked about Q&As. Maybe we'll do Q&As. I think what I might do, this term, school is beating me up a little bit. So there's a lot of reading and writing in this term. So it's really taking a whole lot of my time. I might take a break next week. We'll probably won't do Recovery Monday next week, but I will come up with something. Maybe we'll just do like Friday. I'll put up a Q&A post on Instagram or Q&A post on Facebook. We'll collect questions and we'll do Q&As. I'll drag Josh back in here and Kim and some of the usual crew. We'll do those things from time to time. If you guys have people you want me to talk to, I'll try and get them in. So we'll try and keep it a regular Monday thing. I'm going to take next Monday off, but then we'll be back at it after that and we'll see what we do. So I appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out with me every Monday. I definitely want to keep it going. Again, if you don't have a copy of this book, you can get it on my website at theanxioustruth.com or 7%slower.com, where you see the really cool video trailer for the book that my buddy Craig made. He's a super talented guy. And that's it. Thanks, guys. I will see you in about 2 weeks. Hope this has been helpful. We're out.